Whispers in the dark. Nadia Kasimi wiped condensation from her collection vial and squinted at the peculiar plant specimen she'd discovered growing beneath the bioluminescent canopy. The delicate blue-green fronds curled inward at her touch, releasing a cloud of spores that hung suspended in the humid air like tiny stars. She made a quick notation on her datapad. Specimen V9-214 exhibits defensive response to contact. Spore release possibly communicative. After 4 years on Vega 9, Nadia still found herself astonished by the planet's botanical diversity. The frontier world's ecosystem evolved at a pace that would make Earth's biodiversity researchers weep with envy. Exactly why she'd chosen to remain when the initial survey team departed. Isolation suited her. Plants were far more reliable than people. She secured the specimen in her collection case and straightened, her back protesting after hours of crouching in the undergrowth. At 42, her body frequently reminded her of the crash that had damaged her research vessel and left her with a titanium-reinforced spine. The implant throbbed whenever atmospheric pressure shifted, a common occurrence on this storm-prone planet. The massive flower trees surrounding her swayed as their luminous petals caught the wind, casting shifting patterns of light across the forest floor. 2 moons hung in the evening sky, their overlapping light creating strange, doubled shadows beneath her boots. Nadia checked her atmospheric monitor. Pressure dropping, she muttered to herself. Another storm front. The path back to her outpost was becoming overgrown despite her frequent travel. Carnivorous vines with adhesive tendrils encroached from both sides, and she used her collection tool to push back particularly aggressive growth. For years of seclusion had honed her reflexes. On Vega 9, even the plants could kill you if you weren't vigilant. She crested the small hill that provided the best view of her home. The research outpost sat in a natural clearing, its modular structure partially camouflaged by native vegetation she'd encouraged to grow over certain sections. The adaptive camouflage wasn't just aesthetic, it helped regulate temperature and provided additional structural support during the planet's violent storms. Lightning fractured the darkening sky as she approached. The first heavy raindrops struck the outer shell, activating the outpost's environmental response system. The exterior membrane shifted from matte gray to a reflective blue, preparing to collect and filter the rainwater. Inside, Nadia activated the main power cells. The interior lights gradually brightened, revealing her organized but cramped living space. Specimen containers lined the walls, each meticulously labeled and cross-referenced in her database. A small sleeping pod occupied one corner, while her laboratory equipment dominated the center of the room. The storm intensified, transitioning from standard precipitation to Vega 9's distinctive green rainfall. The phenomenon occurred when upper atmospheric algae mixed with condensation, creating a downpour that bathed the world in an eerie emerald glow. Nadia placed her new specimen in a containment unit and began her evening analysis ritual. She had just calibrated her molecular scanner when a sound cut through the storm's rumble, a metallic scraping against her outer door. She froze. In 4 years, she'd never had a visitor. The nearest human outpost was over 300 kilometers away, and the indigenous creatures avoided her territory after she'd established sonic boundaries that mimicked local predator calls. The scraping came again, followed by something that sounded disturbingly like words. Nadia reached for the pulse rifle mounted beneath her workstation. After verifying its charge, she approached the door cautiously and activated the exterior scanner. The small screen revealed a humanoid figure, tall and slender with a distinctly non-human body structure. It swayed slightly, one hand. No, not quite a hand, but something similar, pressed against the door. Please. The voice was raspy but understandable through the outpost's external communication system. Sanctuary. Needs sanctuary. Nadia's grip tightened on her rifle. Years of isolation had eroded her social skills, but her survival instincts remained razor-sharp. Identify yourself, she demanded through the intercom. How did you find this location? No time, the voice responded, urgency evident despite its alien inflection. It's tracking me. Please. A bone-chilling howl cut through the visitor's words, a sound so primal and otherworldly that Nadia's skin prickled with instinctive fear. The scanner showed the figure's vital signs spiking dramatically. Let me in, it pleaded. It comes. Against every cautionary principle she'd established over 4 years of solitary survival, Nadia disengaged the first security lock. She kept her rifle raised as the outer door slid open a few centimeters, allowing the green-tinged rain to spatter onto her floor. Through the gap, she saw her visitor clearly for the first time. He. The form seemed male, though she knew better than to assume with non-terrestrial species, stood a head taller than her, with skin the color of burnished copper that seemed to shift and ripple like liquid metal. A network of luminous blue lines ran across his exposed skin in intricate patterns that pulsed with a rhythm that reminded her of neural networks. His face was humanoid but with sharper angles, high cheekbones, an elongated jaw, and eyes with vertical pupils that dilated in the outpost's light. Most striking was the wound across his torso, a diagonal slash that leaked silvery fluid and pulsed with an angry red light along its edges. "What's pursuing you?" Nadia demanded, scanning the forest edge visible through the gap. "Harbinger," he rasped, his strange eyes widening. "Bioweapon. Designed to hunt. To retrieve." That's when she heard it. A low, vibrating growl that seemed to resonate through the very molecular structure of her outpost. At the forest's edge, two crimson eyes blinked open, floating like blood droplets in the green-tinted darkness. The creature stepped into view, and Nadia's breath caught. It stood at least 3 meters tall, its powerful frame covered in what appeared to be living armor. Not quite scales, not quite plates, but something in between that shifted and realigned with each movement. Its elongated head featured sensory appendages that twitched and rotated independently, scanning the environment with terrifying precision. Most disturbing were its forelimbs, which ended not in paws or claws but in what looked unmistakably like surgical instruments, blades, probes, and something resembling a collection syringe. "Goddess above," Nadia whispered. The wounded alien turned, saw the creature, and pressed harder against her door. "Please," he said, his voice fading. "I will not harm you." Nadia's mind raced. The creature could be baiting her. This could be an elaborate trap set by corporate harvesters or illegal research teams. She'd seen enough corporate extraction missions on other worlds to know they often used indigenous species as test subjects or living tools. "Why is it hunting you specifically?" she demanded, still blocking the entrance. "I am Calyx," he said, his strange eyes meeting hers directly. "I carry what they want. Knowledge, genetic patterns, freedom." The creature, the Harbinger, released another howl and charged, covering ground with shocking speed for something so large. Nadia made her decision in an instant. She grabbed the alien's arm, pulled him inside, and slammed the door shut, engaging all security protocols just as the Harbinger's instruments scraped against the exterior shell. Calyx collapsed to his knees, silvery fluid pooling beneath him on the floor. Nadia kept her rifle trained on him, while checking the structural integrity display she'd installed to monitor the outpost shell. "Thank you," Calyx gasped, looking up at her with those uncanny vertical pupilled eyes. "I did not believe any human would offer shelter." "Don't thank me yet," Nadia replied, her voice rough from infrequent use. "I might still throw you back outside if you don't explain exactly what that thing is and why it's hunting you." Outside, the Harbinger circled the outpost, occasionally testing the walls with its appendages. Each impact sent vibrations through the structure and triggered warning lights on Nadia's security display. "I am the last surviving scientist from Research Outpost Meridian," Calyx said, struggling to remain upright. "My people. We were contracted by Helix Corporation for biomedical research." Helix. Nadia's eyes narrowed. The name triggered memories she'd spent years trying to suppress. "The pharmaceutical conglomerate?" "Yes." Calyx winced, pressing a hand to his wound. "When we discovered their true purpose, genetic weapons, sentient harvesting, we refused to continue. They eliminated the others. I escaped with the data course." Another impact rocked the outpost. Nadia glanced at the structural display. The reinforced panels were holding, but the Harbinger's attacks were becoming more systematic, testing for weaknesses. "And that thing?" Nadia gestured toward the wall where scraping sounds continued. "A Harbinger. Bioengineered retrieval unit." Calyx's breathing became labored. "Designed specifically to track genetic signatures. It will not stop until it completes extraction." Nadia lowered her rifle slightly, but remained wary. "So you're what, a whistleblower?" "I do not know this term," Calyx admitted. "I am trying to prevent a genocide. My species is not the first they have targeted for resource extraction." The word extraction made Nadia flinch involuntarily, her hand moving to the surgical scars hidden beneath her high-necked research uniform. Calyx noticed the gesture. His eyes softened with recognition. "You understand," he said quietly. "You have experienced their methods." Nadia moved to her workstation without responding, accessing the outpost's external sensors. The Harbinger was methodically testing each panel, its actions displaying disturbing intelligence. "How long have you been running?" she asked. 14 cycles, Calyx replied, examining his wound. "I have not rested properly since escaping their research vessel." Nadia studied him, trying to separate fact from potential manipulation. The wound across his torso pulsed with that strange red light, contrasting with the blue neural patterns that covered the rest of his visible skin. "Look," Calyx said, noticing her scrutiny. "I understand your caution. In your position, I would not trust me either. But that Harbinger will tear this structure apart to reach me. If you want me gone, at least provide me with a means to defend myself." The directness of his statement caught Nadia off guard. She'd expected pleading or deception, not pragmatic acceptance. Another impact shook the outpost, harder this time. The structural display flashed a warning. One of the rear panels was showing stress fractures. "Damn it," Nadia muttered, moving to her equipment storage. She pulled out a smaller pulse pistol and checked its charge. "That thing's identifying the weak points." "They are designed to learn and adapt," Calyx confirmed, rising unsteadily to his feet. "Is there anything I can use to defend myself?" Nadia hesitated before tossing him a vibroblade, standard research equipment for cutting through dense vegetation. "Not much against that monster, but better than nothing." "Thank you." Calyx tested the blade's weight with evident familiarity. "You are remarkably trusting for someone who lives alone on a frontier world." "I'm not trusting," Nadia corrected, checking her rifle's settings. "I'm making a tactical assessment. Right now, you're less dangerous to me than whatever's trying to break down my door." A ghost of a smile touched Calyx's strange face. "A reasonable calculation." The outpost shuddered as the Harbinger launched itself against the same weak spot. The panel's integrity dropped to 65%. "We need a plan," Nadia said, moving to reinforce the compromised section with emergency sealant. This place wasn't designed to withstand concentrated attacks. Calyx approached cautiously, his movements fluid despite his injury. "I can assist. On my world, we developed protective measures against entities far more persistent than this." Nadia handed him one end of a support brace. "Your world? Tell me about it." "Meridian was our research colony," Calyx explained as they worked. Before Helix revealed their true intentions, it was a place of discovery and knowledge. Working together, they secured the reinforcement as the Harbinger continued its assault, each impact more precisely targeted than the last. "It has my biological signature," Calyx explained. "It will not cease until I am either contained or my genetic material is harvested." "Charming," Nadia muttered, securing the final connection. "Got any ideas how to neutralize it?" "Its neural core is protected by multiple redundant systems. The only vulnerable points are the sensory apparatus and collection mechanisms, but approaching close enough would be suicidal," Nadia finished for him. Outside, the Harbinger had gone quiet. The sudden silence was more unnerving than the attacks. "It's reassessing," Calyx whispered, his neural patterns flashing with increased intensity. "It will attempt a new strategy." Nadia moved to the viewport, peering into the emerald-tinted darkness. The Harbinger had retreated to the forest edge, its massive form barely visible among the bioluminescent vegetation. "Why did you choose isolation?" Calyx asked suddenly. "Most humans require social connection." Nadia kept her eyes on the tree line. "Because people are generally disappointing," she answered flatly. "All people?" Calyx asked. She turned to face him. In the outpost's artificial light, his copper skin seemed to flow like quicksilver, and those neural patterns pulsed with a rhythm that matched some of the bioluminescent plants she'd been studying. "Most people," she amended, "especially the ones who experiment on other sentient beings for profit." A low rumble broke the momentary quiet, not an attack this time, but a sound that vibrated through the ground itself. The outpost's floor panels resonated in response. "It's calling," Calyx whispered, his face draining of color. "Calling what?" Before he could answer, a new sound emerged from the forest, an answering call that made Nadia's blood run cold. "There's more than one," she realized. Calyx nodded, his vertical pupils narrowing to slits. "Harbingers hunt in pairs. One engages while the other circles." "And you've led both to my doorstep," Nadia said grimly. She checked her weapons and accessed the tactical display. Sure enough, a second thermal signature identical to the first had appeared at the forest edge. Well, she said with dark humor, so much for my quiet evening of botanical research. As the night deepened around them and the twin harbingers began their coordinated approach, Nadia realized her years of carefully maintained isolation had come to an abrupt end. Whatever came next, she and this strange alien fugitive would face it together, or not at all. Dawn of trust. The first harbinger struck just before midnight. Nadia jolted awake at the sound of tearing metal, her hand automatically reaching for the pulse rifle prop beside her makeshift rest station. She'd insisted Calyx take the sleeping pod, not out of hospitality but practical necessity. His wound needed proper healing time, and she needed him functional if they were going to survive. Northeast quadrant breach. Calyx was already up, his copper skin gleaming in the emergency lighting that had activated when the outer shell was compromised. The neural patterns across his body pulsed rapidly, casting eerie blue shadows across the walls. Nadia checked the security display. The Harbinger had torn through the reinforced panel they'd repaired earlier, its surgical appendages now working methodically to widen the gap. How long until it gets through? She asked, calibrating her rifle to its highest setting. Minutes, not hours. Calyx moved to her workstation, fingers flying across her interface with surprising dexterity. The second one is circling to the southern approach. Classic pincer strategy. The outpost's warning system blared as another impact rocked the structure. Nadia staggered but maintained her footing. Years of navigating Vega 9's unpredictable terrain had given her exceptional balance. We need something more effective than these, she said, nodding toward their weapons. Direct confrontation is suicide. Calyx's vertical pupils dilated as he assessed the laboratory equipment. Your botanical research, you mentioned chemical deterrence? Nadia's eyes widened as understanding dawned. Specimen V9-187, she said, moving quickly to a sealed containment unit. The neuroinhibitor spores. She extracted a sealed vial containing iridescent purple spores collected from one of Vega 9's most dangerous plant species. The fungoid growth had evolved to paralyze the planet's apex predators, releasing targeted neurotoxins that disrupted motor function without affecting respiratory systems. Nature's perfect hunting strategy. I've been studying its potential as a non-lethal defense mechanism, she explained, carefully transferring the spores into a pressurized canister. Highly specific protein recognition. It targets predator neurochemistry. And the harbingers are designed with predator templates, Calyx concluded, understanding immediately. Their sensory systems should trigger the same response cascade. Another impact shook the outpost, followed by the screech of tearing metal. The first harbinger had breached the outer shell completely. They could hear its heavy movements in the narrow maintenance corridor that separated the exterior wall from the main living space. We have one chance, Nadia said, attaching the canister to a modified sample launcher. These spores are designed to incapacitate, not kill. The effect won't be permanent. Long enough to escape is all we need, Calyx replied, positioning himself beside the interior door that would soon give way. They waited in tense silence, listening to the harbinger's methodical progress through the corridor. Nadia found herself studying Calyx's profile, the determined set of his jaw, the concentrated flash of his neural pathways. For a being so alien, his expressions of courage and resolve were remarkably familiar. Why are you really helping me? Calyx asked suddenly, his eyes still fixed on the door. You could have surrendered me. Saved yourself. The question caught Nadia off guard. She considered deflecting, as she had with every personal inquiry over the past 4 years, but something in his direct gaze demanded honesty. I was a geneticist for Helix, she admitted, the words bitter on her tongue. Frontier Division. Recruited right out of the academy. Understanding flickered across Calyx's features. You discovered what they were really doing. Too late. Nadia's hand unconsciously moved to the scars along her spine. I was working on adaptive plant-human cellular integration. Medical applications for extreme environments. Or so they told me. The outer door began to buckle under the harbinger's assault. Metal groaned in protest. They were weaponizing my research, she continued, her voice hardening. Creating biological agents that could target specific genetic markers. When I threatened to expose them, they decided I'd make an excellent test subject. The implants, Calyx said softly. They weren't from a crash. The crash was real. The damage was augmented. Her grip tightened on the launcher. I got lucky. The extraction team was sloppy. I sabotaged the transport and let everyone believe I died in the wreckage. The door bulged inward, metal straining at its connectors. You didn't just choose isolation, Calyx realized. You needed it to survive. The interior door gave way with a final screech of tearing metal. The Harbinger's massive form filled the opening, its sensory appendages twisting frantically as it analyzed the room. Its collection instruments gleamed under the emergency lights, razor-sharp and purpose-built. Now, Nadia shouted. She fired the launcher directly at the creature's sensory cluster. The canister burst on impact, releasing a cloud of purple spores that hung suspended in the air for a breathless moment before the Harbinger's intake systems unwittingly drew them in. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The creature's coordinated movements became erratic. Its armored plates shifted and realigned randomly as its control systems misfired. The surgical appendages retracted and extended in spasmodic jerks. It's working, Calyx breathed. The Harbinger emitted a high-pitched wail that made them both cover their ears. Its crimson eyes flickered as internal systems fought against the neurotoxin's effects. Not for long, Nadia warned, already moving toward her emergency escape hatch, a narrow tunnel she'd excavated beneath the outpost for precisely this kind of crisis. The second one will have heard that distress call. They gathered only essential supplies, Nadia's research data pad, medical supplies, and emergency rations. Calyx retrieved something from a hidden compartment in his clothing, a small crystalline structure that pulsed with internal light. The data core, he explained, catching her questioning glance. Everything I stole from Helix. Genetic templates, extraction protocols, target lists. A new alarm blared on the security system. The second Harbinger had reached the outpost's southern wall and was beginning its assault. Time to go, Nadia said, sliding open the concealed floor panel that revealed her escape tunnel. This leads to a cave system 2 kilometers south. The mineral deposits should mask our biosignatures temporarily. Calyx hesitated, his gaze sweeping over her laboratory, years of research and discovery about to be destroyed. Your work is backed up and encrypted, she finished for him, gesturing impatiently toward the tunnel. I've learned to prepare for catastrophic outcomes. The paralyzed Harbinger continued its disjointed movements, occasionally crashing into equipment as its coordination failed. The creature's distress calls had taken on a more urgent pitch, signaling its partner with increasing desperation. Calyx descended into the tunnel first, his tall frame barely fitting the narrow passage. Nadia followed, sealing the entrance behind them. The escape route was rough-hewn and cramped, forcing them to move in a half-crouch through the phosphorescent fungus-lined walls. These tunnels, Calyx observed as they made their way through the winding passage, they're not entirely artificial. Native burrowing creatures made the original network, Nadia explained, her voice echoing slightly in the confined space. I simply expanded and connected them. The fungal growth provides light and consumes our exhaled carbon dioxide. They moved as quickly as possible through the tunnel system, aware that even with the spore's effect, the Harbingers would eventually regroup and track them. The neural patterns across Calyx's skin provided additional illumination, pulsing brighter whenever they approached a junction. You navigate by those? Nadia asked, nodding toward the glowing blue lines. Neural spatial mapping, Calyx confirmed. My species evolved in subterranean environments before adapting to surface life. We retained certain advantages. An hour into their escape, they reached a larger chamber where several tunnels converged. Nadia had established it as an emergency shelter, stocked with basic supplies and monitoring equipment that connected to satellite sensors near her outpost. We can rest here briefly, she said, activating a small power cell that illuminated the space. Check the wound. Calyx eased himself onto a stone outcropping, wincing as the movement pulled at his injury. The angry red glow along the edges had dimmed somewhat, but the wound itself remained open, still leaking silvery fluid. Nadia retrieved a medical scanner from the emergency supplies and ran it over the injury. The readings made her frown. There's something embedded in the tissue, she said, preventing cellular regeneration. Harbinger collection protocol, Calyx explained grimly. Their blades deposit nanocale inhibitors. Keeps targets viable but weakened during extraction. Nadia's scientific curiosity momentarily overrode her survival focus. Your natural healing capability, it's similar to some of the adaptable plant species I've studied here. Cellular memory and accelerated mitosis? More complex, but yes, Calyx watched as she prepared a solution from her medical kit. My species evolved on a radiation-heavy world. Genetic repair became evolutionary necessity. Nadia applied the solution directly to the wound. This contains compounds extracted from local flora with similar properties. It might neutralize the inhibitors. The effect was immediate. The silvery fluid began to thicken and the edges of the wound started to knit together. The red glow faded completely as Calyx's natural healing processes reasserted themselves. Impressive, he said, genuine admiration in his voice. You understand cross-species biological compatibility at an intuitive level.